like an industry doesn't just pop up. Like it's created by people. It's created by demand, basically. An industry is always created by demand. And if a camel and I believe in Australia, we don't really have a camel industry. It's just too small. Like we don't have the organisations that the cattle industries and the sheep industries and even the alpaca and the llama industries.
It's small industry.
It's so small that we don't have other bigger organisations umbrellaing us and supporting us. The biggest misconception people have is like, well, can you just go out and grab a couple for me?
No, you can't.
Nah.
Because it's someone's property. Definitely opportunities.
There's so much. And the beautiful thing about all of this, and we want to get through a few more points, is that if we create a demand for camels, and this is not just meat, but this is like for pets, for weed eating, for trekking, for commercial purposes, we're actually creating an industry. And if we create an industry, what are we doing as well? Creating jobs.
And at the same time, working towards protecting the environment.
That's right. And also, helping the camels that are out there, in the arid zones.
Right. So there's quite a number of ways, really.
Whether you're a camel owner, wannabe camel owner, or simply an adoring camel fan, you're in the right place for some fun, useful, and interesting camel talk. This is the Camel Connection podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Tara.
And I'm Russell. Join us here for fun learning about camels, how to care for, train and handle them, plus insider stories and interviews.
And also some interesting stories of our lifestyle with camels, the good, the bad, the ugly and the very funny.
Make sure you subscribe now so you don't miss out on an episode.
Some of these podcasts are an audio take of our video, so be sure to check those out on our blog for lots of how-to visuals and, of course, lots of camels.
This is your one and only go-to podcast, all about camels.
Welcome back to the Camel Connection podcast.
Well, hi everyone.
It's Tara here.
Russell here.
And we're coming to you today from actually a rainy day in East Gippsland, Victoria, Australia. As some of you know, like only 4 weeks ago, we were under fire threat. And it's insanely rainy now. It's so soggy out there. It's just insane.
And it's still being supposedly summer, but we're both in jumpers at the moment, and sweaters, if you like to call them that. There's been no real summer at all. But the little bit of warmth that we've had, the grass is green.
Which is crazy because it was brown, ready to burn a few weeks ago. Like,
it's amazing.
What is happening? Anyway.
And we had hail yesterday too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hail Mary.
No, it's just hail.
Joke of the day.
Hail Caesar.
We got the joke out of the way.
All right, good.
So we're actually going to talk a bit about all the emails that we've actually been getting from you guys, because if you've been following the media, I would say it happened like during the fires, which was kind of a bit difficult for us because a lot of people were inquiring to us about this, and that was a particular cull of camels in Australia. For those of you who don't know, camels are classed as feral in Australia, so they do get culled by government organisations.
They actually send up a helicopter gunship.
Yes.
Just a helicopter with a shooter on board, but it's a sharpshooter, and literally scores of thousands of camels get shot per year in this manner.
And so this media outbreak happened. It happens every 3 years, I reckon. Like suddenly,
it is actually every year.
You reckon?
Yeah, but the media pick it up every about 3 years.
Well, this one seemed to be way more dramatic than a lot of the previous ones. Like it's like suddenly more and more, like suddenly more people now know about the cullings of Australian camels. This one just blew out of proportion, and I don't know what did it, but so, basically the media lines was 10,000 camels being killed, in Australia sort of thing. Now, this is out in the arid zones. It's obviously not on the coast where we live or,
not a populated area.
This is on Aboriginal communities and also stations.
Crown land.
Crown land.
Crown
So
land and stations, yeah.
big farms. So we wanted to address this topic today because we got so, like, every time the media outbreak happens about the culling of the camels, we get a lot of emails, like, and messages, like, people are asking us to send our Australian camels to them. And we would love to.
We would love to, but I tell you, logistically, that is it's relatively complex. But there are people that are actually doing it. There's a number of companies out there that do that, and they do ship overseas camels from Australia. So, if people are after that sort of avenue, then they are out
But
there.
this is the thing I think a lot of people don't realise, Russell, because a lot of people inquire about it and they want the camels, but they want them for basically nothing to start with, which by the time you incorporate the cost of the muster and the yarding and the staff that go along with that, like, it is a very expensive project.
It
and
is.
A lot of people, very, very few people will actually put up that cost and send camels back, to their country.
Yeah, I mean, just because of the feral and they're out there, I mean, Australia's a huge country. And just to get to where just to find out where the camels are exactly in what I call the big paddock, that's a costly exercise in itself. I mean, the government pretty much knows where the concentration of the camels are, but it is very, very remote. And so there's a huge cost attached to actually even finding yards, or maybe even having to set up yards and trap yards. And then you've got helicopter costs, which are hugely expensive per hour.
Oh, yeah.
And so on and so on. I mean, the list goes on. Then there's, of course, quarantine, and then there's, the bureaucracy to go through, and then the transport, actually getting them overseas. So it's actually quite an operation to do that. And like I said, there are companies that do that.
It would be a full-time job for someone to undertake that. And we investigated that, but then would have to give up educating you guys about camels. So, that wasn't really a viable option, and that's what we're going to talk about today, is how you can actually help. We're never going to be able to stop the culling. Well, I don't know, we might. Can't say never. But there's things that we can do as individuals to actually help reduce the culling of the camels. And I wholeheartely believe this. There is a lot of feral camels out there, but it's sort of like that shellfish story, right? Like the boy that walked starfish. We're not saying
starfish.
Shellfish. A boy's walking along the beach, and he sees all these starfish that have been washed ashore, and he had somebody walking with him, and he picked up one and threw it back into the ocean, and the person walking with him said, why did you save that one starfish when you've got thousands of others that could have done with saving too? And he says, well, that was just one starfish. And
save one.
And that does make a difference.
It does. And I mean, we do have an issue in Australia, of course. There's no natural predators out in the arid zone for the camel, and so their numbers do increase. And if we're to be totally honest with ourselves and being conservationists first of native species of plants and animals, we do need to do something about the numbers there. And I've always said, and I was taught by my mentor as well, and I've always agreed, and I've kept on saying, the thing that we should be doing is harvesting these camels. All right. Now, whether that's harvesting live or harvesting for something like the meat industry, meat, leather, all the other products, that's it's still harvesting, and at least we're not leaving the camels in a drop to rot program on the desert floor.
Often still half alive, because how
sometimes.
can they really check?
Yeah.
From the air.
But or digging pits and putting the dead carcasses into a pit and burning it. That's another thing that happens. But one problem that they do with the drop and rot, if there's carcasses on the desert floor, of course, they attract wild dogs. And of course more wild dogs because they breed, because the conditions are favourable, with food sources such as a dead carcass, and therefore less native species of mammals other animals as well.
Yeah.
So, and cats.
It's
too.
a complex situation, guys, and we're very humbled by how many people actually care. Like with this recent media outbreak of 10,000 camels being killed, we're very humbled by how many people responded to that positively, like to camels in general, which was awesome, to see. But again, a very complex situation. There is just not one thing you can consider here. There has to be a holistic view at this. And that's why we thought we would jump on here and just say, hey, all right, we might not be able to change the world in one day, but here's some things that we can do. Because even if these 10,000 camels did get rescued, guess what? It's only going to happen again. And again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again, because there's such a high pressure on the government to control this feral herd for a variety of reasons. So it's complex.
Yeah, so I mean, like here in Australia, for example, we can actually do a couple of things, and I'm just going to mention one at the moment, and that is if you haven't, get a camel.
Hello. If you're listening to this.
Yeah, no. Look, if you're interested at all in camels, and we always say get two because they are a herd animal.
And hey, you might as well get 4.
Or 6.
6, 10, 12.
But yeah, if you're interested at all in getting a camel, well, find a way and do it. Make sure that you get the right training so that you are remaining safe, that you understand the animal, and also the camel is safe as well and getting well looked after. That's the number one thing, really, here in Australia.
I think that the other thing that's really, like, where I personally get really tossed up in my head is, like, we've made a conscious decision as a company not to breed camels because there are so many camels out there that are can so easily be trained, out there as in out in the big paddock, as you call it, that it just does not ethically feel right to us to breed. That being said, we're not a dairy. We're not breeding for quality. We're not breeding for any of that stuff.
No, that's right.
So
we're not into breeding.
We're not.
Breeding sake.
We don't have a need to do it. Even if we had a really nice working camel, we know that another one can be found. There's so many out there that we could choose another one. It's not a hard situation in that respect because there's so much choice. So you've got to just be conscious on where you're choosing your camels from too. What's the history behind it? There are camel dairies within Australia that sell their young stock and they need homes too. It's like, what do you do? But again, like that being said, if these camel dairies didn't have the young stock, they wouldn't, the female camels that most likely originally came from the wild in the first place, which a lot of the dairies we know have come from the wild, they would have been shot out there anyway.
That's very true.
So I'm going to talk from a vegan perspective because I know you guys that eat vegan and, practice vegan lifestyle, I suppose you could say, don't use any animal products ingesting as well as on your body as well, but you're actually kind of helping camels not be shot out in the arid zones by buying camel milk products like body soap and hand cream and things like that. So the cosmetics, obviously, you've just I eat vegan, so like this is where I suppose I can talk on this matter because that's just my lifestyle I prefer, but I do use camel milk soap because I know, it's particularly from these certain dairies, that they've got camels already from the arid zones, and if it wasn't for them, then those would have likely been shot.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, well, I'm not a vegan.
No. So you speak from your perspective.
I'll speak from my perspective.
Because I can't speak from the meat perspective.
And from the meat perspective, I mean, okay. I don't know whether the camel dairies are attached to any sort of meat processing at the moment. I'm not sure.
From my understanding, most try to rehome.
Yeah, I believe that would be the case too. But from the meat perspective, I mean, like I said, to actually look after the Australian native flora and fauna, we do need to keep those numbers down, the feral herd down in numbers. We're never going to get rid of them all, right? We've got to be an understanding of that. But what you can do here in this country, in Australia, is go to your local butcher and say, can I please get camel meat ordered in? All right, because there are abattoirs and there are processor companies that process the camel meat,
And a good butcher would certainly investigate that for you.
A good butcher would, and if they say, "Oh no, we can't get it in," guess
Then go
what?
to someone else.
Go to someone else. It's really that simple. And by doing that, right, let's look at the benefits that you're getting. Okay, you're getting meats that are rich in omega-3 and omega-6. It's high in minerals and vitamins. It is a low cholesterol meat as well, and also it'll be coming from some of the purest deserts in the world. Now, seriously, what more do you want? You know, so, you know, you talk about organic and all that sort of thing. Well, you know, you pretty much hit the nail on the head with camel meat, I believe, anyway.
And I think the side effect of that too, I mean, it's like anything. Like, an industry doesn't just pop up. Like, it's created by people. It's created by demand, basically. An industry is always created by demand. And if a camel and I believe in Australia, we don't really have a camel industry. It's just too small. Like, we don't have the organisations that the cattle industries and the sheep industries and even the alpaca and the llama industries.
It's small industry.
It's so small that we don't have other bigger organisations umbrellaing us and supporting us. But an offlet, as you were talking through that I thought would be really good for people to know, that if they're eating camel meat, the cattle and sheep that also are out there in the arid zones and stations, big farms, they do more damage to the land with their hard feet than the camels do. And also they're grazers, not browsers like camels. So, or it's sort of like, like this demand thing, like, I'm trying to say this really politely. You know, like cattle do a lot more damage to the environment than camels because they're soft padded feet.
Especially in the soft sands of the arid zone.
It's only because we have too many camels that we've got a what did you say before? A flora and fauna issue.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So it's sort of like you got to consciously choose for yourself.
And I think too, like, I mean, if you're listening from overseas, that being not in Australia, and you really are quite passionate about the camels, and you actually have the means to do so by getting in contact with some distributors or wholesalers or something along that line, and asking if shipments of packaged camel meat from Australia could be organised to be sent to your country, to your place. All right. I mean, there's opportunities there.
And there's
definitely
camel milk as well.
There's definitely opportunities.
There's so much. And the beautiful thing about all of this, and we want to get through a few more points, is that if we create a demand for camels, and this is not just meat, but this is like for pets, for weed eating, for trekking, for commercial purposes, we're actually creating an industry. And if we create an industry, what are we doing as well? Creating jobs.
And at the same time, working towards protecting the environment.
That's right. And also, you know, helping, you know, the camels that are out there, you know, in the arid zones.
Right. So there's quite a number of ways, really. I mean, when you think about it.
I've actually got a list here that I wrote down. We posted this on Facebook a little while ago. So basically how you can help. So how you can help less shootings of Australian camel population. We're not going to stop it, I don't believe.
No, there's certainly need for it at certain times and certain situations certain situations. Now, just so that we're really clear on this,
we love camels.
When camels are, say, entering into communities, Aboriginal communities or the desert communities, looking for water, especially in drought conditions, you know, they can cause damage. However, there's a way around that too, and I have seen that in some of the communities where they've sunk a bore and a water trough well outside of the community, you know, a kilometre or 2 kilometres.
Because the camels come into the community looking for water.
That's it. And so if the water's available outside of the community, the way how the camels drink, they'll take that water and suck up their 150 odd litres or whatever it might be that they're requiring, and then they'll go wandering for 65 kilometres. They won't be slightest bit interested in going to the community
and hanging around.
But their memory is brilliant, and they'll go back
to
that water point. So that is one way that they're able to assist the communities from not being invaded by herds and herds of very thirsty wild camels.
And I think because the camels are so misunderstood and they're not understood as a species, like people like us who understand camel behaviour, they may not have certain areas and communities, organisations may not have that consultation to advise them on certain things, and they're like, well, let's just fix this quickly and shoot the camels. You know, like, I mean, we don't know this for sure because we're not involved with the government organisations, but, you know, this is where...
It's a complex situation, again, with the Aboriginal communities. Because, I mean, if you take Aboriginal Australia, okay, and you look at the land, all the land belongs to someone, okay? And when a camel goes ahead and walks into someone's homeland, all right, or someone's property, for want of a better word, all right, that camel is theirs to look after. All right, this is from the Aboriginal perspective. And when the camel leaves that property and walks into the next door neighbours or the next family's homelands, then it is theirs to look after. Now, if they are of the mindset or they're of the tradition that, you know, they can eat that camel, then, you know, that's what they can do. But however, if their camel is actually a part of things like maybe the totems or, you know, a religious story, that's attached with camels.
History.
So there's some history there, and their job is to look after the camels, and they'll let those camels wander around their country and onto the next person's quite happily. Then you've got others who they don't have the history and all that sort of thing, or they've got a different mindset again, and so their country, the camels walking onto their country, they do see that as something that is a problem. However, they may not want death on their property, so they go ahead and say no culling on my property. However, then again, they might be interested in mustering and shipping out the camels. So it's quite a complex situation out there, and
depending on individual beliefs of certain
of the family groups, the family tribe, societies. So, you know, this is where the complexity of the issues come about. No, we can't just go onto anyone's property and get camels.
Yeah, often that's the biggest misconception people have is like, well, can you just go out and grab a couple for me?
No, you can't.
Nah, we can't.
Because it's someone's property. And therefore, those camels are owned by someone. So yeah, it's a very complex situation in that respect.
And this goes back to our next point is like, you know, this is ways that you can help, and whether you're an Australian or reside in Australia or whether you're overseas, this all counts towards you, because in one way or another you're helping by educating yourself about camels. And the reason that that's a possibility, for instance, so you educate yourself about camels basically so a budding industry can actually be formed. Again, think of the horse industry, the alpaca industry, the llama industry. It started with probably a couple of llamas in Australia, and then the demand grew and grew and grew.
That's right.
And how that helps on a global level, but in particular aiming towards the camels in Australia, is if you're educating yourself on camels, guess what? More people in the United States and Europe, and where camels aren't very common or as widely bred as they are in Australia, can be shipped to those countries because the demand is higher. People are willing to pay the price and whatever. So, you know, you can see like this all has a ripple effect, and that's why it's so important to look at this on a holistic basis, because those 10,000 camels that were shot, it's only going to happen again, you know. So we have to, as a grassroots community, we have to do these small step things. And it's going to take a lot longer, but ultimately we're creating an industry which, you know, we know what happens when you create an industry, the flow and effects. So
that's it. And besides, I still want to see camel polo clubs here in Australia.
Oh, yeah. How much potential have we got for camel everything?
Enormous.
Yeah.
Enormous, yeah. It's never ending.
So here's a couple of things that you can do to help, so that you can help less students of Australian camel population, no matter where you are in the world. Attend camel events.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like? Well, we're not on the racing scene, but there are camel races, obviously, in the UAE and Australia.
And even America.
And Africa.
Oh, yeah, lots in Africa.
So lots of different camel events. And although you might not agree with certain aspects of that, if you don't agree with it, then don't go. But, there's other camel events too that you can attend to. So if that's an expo that was, it's going to have camels at it, like attending that and having that, like it is, all of that counts,
And make it fun, go to some of the international festivals that they have.
Yeah, like Mongolia and India, Pushka Camel Fair in India, the Mongolia.
All these others, there's so many.
Yeah, and not only that, but there's also our events too. Why not? We'll mention them. We've got all our camel events. We travel internationally. And all that sort of stuff. And attending camel, like if your interest is really spiked, and it doesn't matter if you don't have a camel, attending camel courses and clinics and training, because you're educating yourself more and more about these amazing animals.
Yeah.
And hopefully they'll get to a point where you do end up inviting some into your home life. So go on camel safaris in Australia.
Yeah.
Ethical ones, of course.
There's a couple in the States I know of as well.
Is it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Camel, probably not camel trekking safaris.
Yeah, a few days. Yeah, they go out for a odd number of days.
Yeah. And so those sort of arrangements, and if you're not comfortable riding a camel for your own beliefs and purposes, then just visit in. You can always ask just to visit. You say, I don't want to ride, but I just want to visit. How much can I pay you to do that? Sort of as a tour sort of thing. So, going on camel safaris and support camel businesses within Australia and around the world too. Because, again, that all comes back to that demand. And we've got a lot of camels we can get rid of, in quotes, in Australia, and we could be exporting them into other countries.
A lot more than what we are at the moment, but we are, but a lot more.
Yeah, well, we aren't, but others are. We as Australia. There's certain individuals doing it. Yeah. And again, buying camel milk products.
Yes.
And we went through the, for vegans, how you're comfort with that. And just remember that when you're buying camel milk cosmetics, obviously you don't need to consume it, then you're actually helping save camels from arid zones, because camel dairy is the ones that we know of. They get fresh cows in, like the female camels, from the wild. So, that's a few less camels that...
the more camel dairies, and the better health people are, getting health benefits from the actual camel milk and the consumption of that, and also the cosmetics.
And the interesting thing with the camel dairies that we're affiliated with, that are our students, is that they started these camel dairies because of this problem that we have of camels in Australia. They wanted to help, and this was their way of helping. So... that's a really great thing. And basically just do all the camel things and have the conversations with other Australians and globally about the feral camels in Australia. Because the more people that are aware of it, you might just be planting the seed, or you might have quite an elaborate conversation about it. Either way, it's just starting that conversation so that we can start creating an actual industry around camels.
Absolutely. I think it really does depend on, it's the will. How much will, political will, cut some of the red tape would be a good idea. But also, how much will do people have to actually do something constructive about this situation, rather than just simply blindly saying, we'll just shoot them.
With anything government that's supported by the government, the biggest impact comes when there's pressure from the people. Like, okay, we actually want camels now. We want them as pets, and we want them as for commercial operating and things like that. And we've got to be a bit brave about it. Maybe we're stepping into unknown territory, but with education platforms like ours, and hopefully there'll be more as the industry grows, there will be those places to go to get that education. So. That's the goal. And our goal too is that we want the industry to grow so much that we can start, taking people who've been through our training, we can have like certify them as trainers so that you guys get more and more help. You know, because there's only 2 of us. We can't do it all in our whatever we've got left in our lives. So, you know, there's so much potential there, and we've always seen that, haven't we? And we're going to grow from that.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
Very good.
So thank you so much for tuning in, and we really hope that you found some valuable information in this. If you have, leave a comment or leave a review wherever you're listening, and just start doing all the camel things, having the conversations, attending events, buying camel products, all that sort of stuff.
All the above.
Okay.
Good on you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot for listening.
Catch you on the next one.
See you then.
Bye.
Bye.
Virtual Camel School is coming up. Don't miss your chance to learn our Camel Connection trust-based camel training method from the comfort of wherever you are in the world. You'll be joining us and other camel-loving people in this dynamic foundational camel training course designed for camel owners and those that want to own camels in the future. No matter if you've been in the camel game for a while or you're only just starting out, you're going to love our virtual camel school with pre-recorded training videos for you to watch and live weekly training videos with us to cement your learning and have your questions answered. We guarantee you'll learn something new, so head over to camelieracademy.com now to learn how you can join.